people. Here we go. Some news headlines. Let's go.
Hey, gun people. Well, we got more information, which will change some opinions, but there's something good. When I first saw the Baldwin shooting, Alec Baldwin, this was what they showed him right after the shooting. So I thought he wasn't in character, and if he was shot the gun when he wasn't in character, he was probably, the term I use, fucking around. Well, now, after I've read a few places, I can't find the search warrant. Nobody wants to post it. They just want to quote sections out of it. One part of the search warrant said they seized clothes, the bloody costume that Alec was wearing during the production. So that leads me to believe they were actually in the middle of a scene. Now, there's still rumors that he accidentally, or he was joking around and they had to reshoot the scene. And when they said reshoot it, he said, how about I reshoot you? He drew the gun, pointed it, and fired it. If that's the case, that changes everything. But nobody's been able to prove that correct yet. And they didn't arrest him. As a matter of fact, the media is handling him with such kid gloves. They're like, he's free to go. He's a free man. He's not restricted. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, it's just amazing how they're kissing his ass on this incident. Anyone else would be totally locked up. But Wikipedia put out some good information that they got from different sources. So let's take a look at that. Yes, I know Wikipedia is a political organization and sometimes they push agendas, but I'm doing this for information that they're citing and they're putting out. We don't really know anything for facts yet other than somebody's dead and Alex was holding the gun that shot and killed the person. I mean, this headline should be Alec Baldwin killing or murder or innocent victim killed by him. It should be his name in here, and they're calling it the 2021 Rust shooting in order to minimize his name, his anti-gun agenda, which his anti-gun agenda is going to be critical in his knowledge of guns. And that's going to go into, I'm going to talk a little bit about negligence and civil liability versus criminal liability. The fact that he is a movie guy and is so outspoken against guns, it's going to be very hard for him to claim, I didn't know guns were dangerous. I didn't know if I pointed a gun at somebody and pulled the trigger that it could hurt them. I didn't know. Not only is the fact that he is so outspoken that guns are so dangerous and should be controlled and removed, Hollywood is now calling for the removal of all real guns like Hollywood and Left Wing always do. Ban, ban, ban. Let's not hold people responsible and accountable. Let's ban objects. Unless the left likes the objects, then it's okay. So the fact that he's anti-gun shows and demonstrates that he has knowledge that guns are dangerous and can kill people. So he can't claim, I didn't know. Also, the fact that he was producer, which puts him in charge of the set, it makes him responsible for actions that are not safe. Now, he's going to claim as an actor, well, I was the actor and it was the armor. And I think they're going to throw down the assistant director and the armor, which they all should be culpable. Assistant director is Dave Halls. In this sentence right here, I mean, the legal or the conclusions are bullshit, okay? Cinematographer was killed. We know that. Director Souza was injured on the set. We know that. After actor Alec Baldwin unintentionally. How do we know it's unintentional? How do we know? It's unintentional that he killed her. It wasn't unintentional that he pulled the gun. He held the gun. He cocked the gun, pulled the trigger back, and then he pulled the trigger, dropping the hammer, which fired the gun while it was pointed at somebody. None of that was unintentional. All those are intentional acts, and that's where we're going to get into the big liability here. Was it part of a scene? Was he in the course of his acting duties when he did these things? He's probably going to be covered. If he pulled it out as a joke and was goofing around and being, I'm in charge and I don't have to follow safety procedures, then it matters against him for criminal and civil liability. So Alec Baldwin unintentionally discharged a prop firearm. They say it's a prop firearm. A lot of people are thinking it's a fake gun. Prop guns can be real guns that shoot blanks. So, and a lot of films use real guns has a lot of people are testifying to. A lot of videos are coming out where people are saying, hey, I worked on the sets. We use real guns. We just put blank ammunition in them. Okay, but there's a few things that really come out in this video that's kind of interesting to me. That's really going to change things. So, prop firearm handed by Assistant Director Dave Halls. I think Halls is going to be the fall guy here. They're really painting him out, and a lot of people are coming out against him because he's a nobody. The film's production company, New Mexico Occupational Health Safety Bureau, was investigating the incident. I think the DA's office is also involved in the investigation. Okay, a lot of people think this is going to be important. The film crew, August 6th, soon after filming, several crew members of the international, this is the union workers, raised concerns about working conditions and safety during the film. This is huge. I mean, this has to be part of the investigation because this goes to negligent or recklessness conduct. You can't claim, I didn't know, it wasn't my fault, I was just handed a gun, I'm just a dumbass, I pointed a gun at somebody that I didn't know was loaded, it's not my fault, I squeezed the trigger while I was pointing at him and I killed somebody, it's not my fault. You can't claim that with all this information about unsafe conditions. Now, here's where I got a problem with. They're saying it's unsafe conditions, but actually the issues were delays in receiving paychecks, excess working hours, and long commutes. So it sounds like the union is trying to get paid more money for doing less. However, it can be a reasonable conclusion that if you have excesses working working hours, you know, like truck drivers can only drive so long because it reduces their reaction time. It makes them less aware. So these people are saying, hey, we're working around guns, it's dangerous. If you work us these excessive hours and you give us these long commutes, we're going to have safety accidents. So is that reasonable? I think that is reasonable. The production originally told the workers that it would pay for hotel rooms, say, but it failed to do so. So again, it comes back, follow the money, forcing the crew for long commutes every day. Therefore, it wasn't their fault. Everybody's got a reason on why it wasn't their fault. The end result, a woman is dead. Baldwin was holding the gun, pointing it at her, and Baldwin pulled the trigger. I mean, that's undeniable. We know that from every report. Nobody is saying that somebody else had the gun, somebody else pointed it at her, somebody else pulled the trigger. We know Baldwin held the gun, cocked the gun because it was an old Western style gun, fired the gun while it was pointed at somebody, and that person is dead. So we know that. This goes to lack of protocol or lack of safety procedure. The production did not launch an investigation into the accidental discharge that were later claims. So there was evidently long commutes out there. Concerns were also raised about safety measures, including at least one complaint about gun safety after 2 accidental discharges on the weekend of October. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's just crazy. So there was 2 accidental discharges on the 16th. This shooting happened on the 21st. So within 5 days of 2 accidental discharges and complaints about gun safety, a person ends up dead and shot. That is a huge line. And again, everybody's going to say this is just some unforeseen circumstance. I can tell you right now how they're going to play this. It's not going to be Baldwin's fault. This is a horrible accident that a lot of people are culpable. There was a lot of little mistakes, a lot of safety concerns ignored, and all of this set into motion to where all things just landed actually just perfectly to end with this person being killed. And it was really not one person's fault. Alec Baldwin is the victim here because he was handed a gun that he was told was safe and it wasn't. Therefore, it isn't his fault. Even though anyone who handles guns knows you're responsible for any gun you handle, you check it, you confirm whether it's safe, you know. So, I mean, this is just huge information. This is another incident that concerns this. On October 21st, 7 unionized members of the film crew were told to leave the set, and a producer threatened to call the police if they did not leave, and they were replaced. Basically, 7 members were fired, and they replaced them with people who would keep their mouths shut. This goes to extreme negligence. You have people complaining about 2 accidental discharges, gun safety being ignored. Those people are fired, and now you replace it. Now, notice they say that this was done by a producer. Was this Alec Baldwin, or was this someone else? Was this producer acting on instructions from Baldwin? Was Baldwin upset and told the producer, we need to get rid of them? All huge parts of the investigation. If this investigation is not done correctly, all this will be hidden and passed over, and we'll end up with the end result, I'm telling you, which I think is going to happen. It wasn't his fault. He was handed a gun. He didn't know. He has no criminal liability because they handed him a gun that was loaded. Poor Alex. He's a victim here too. Even though a woman died as a result of his actions, that's how it's going to be played out, is my prediction. This information further creates a somewhat conspiracy on whether somebody did this on person, has a payback or not. So when the members were on strike, the person that died, that was killed, supported the strike. The person that died supported the 7 people that were fired because they raised safety concerns. The person died, so wrote in her Instagram she was standing in solidarity with the people striking. This goes to motive. Now, does this mean that she was killed intentionally? No. But how did a live round get on a stage? I think I'm going to answer that in a minute, which is really more negligence and more just craziness. So this will be the second fall person. Hannah. I've never met a Hannah in my life that wasn't a spoiled, entitled, left-wing, raving, everybody owes me everything, and I'm incompetent. I just haven't met a Hannah yet that wasn't like that. So Hannah was the weapons master. Non-union, replaced because she'll keep her mouth shut, because she's a team player, because she won't argue with Alec Baldwin, okay? On the set, overseeing the weapons, she's 24 years old. Never been in the military, never been in law enforcement, never carried a gun in real life. As a matter of fact, she makes a statement. Reed, which is Hannah, makes a statement and said loading a prop gun with blank rounds was the scariest thing to her. You've got a weapons expert that is admitting she's scared of guns and blank rounds. Are you freaking kidding me? No expert in weapons is afraid of the weapon. They know if it's handled properly, it can't hurt them. They know if it's handled safely, it won't hurt anybody else. They know if I follow standard safety procedures when handling firearms, the gun is safe. Why is loading a gun with blank rounds the scariest thing to Miss Hannah, the weapons master and weapons expert? Absolutely negligent hiring, negligent retention, fired people that brought up negative things. I mean, this thing just gets deeper into it. Wait, it's getting better. Oh my God, it's getting better. So here's where they're kind of like setting the stage to blame this Dave Hall's assistant director, okay? Actor Alec Baldwin was handed a firearm. See, it wasn't his fault. He was handed a firearm. It's not that he accepted a firearm without checking it. It's not that he didn't check the firearm to make sure it was safe. It's not that he pointed a gun that he had never cleared to make sure it was safe at a person, pulled the trigger, and killed him. No. Alex, the victim, was handed a firearm by the assistant director, Dave Halls, who picked up the prop gun from a cart prepared by the armor expert Hannah, who thinks blank rounds are the scariest thing. I mean, you can't even make this shit. This shit ought to be a freaking movie on how movies hire freaking idiots and get people killed and then run around on TV saying guns are dangerous and we must outlaw guns. I mean, it's just so ironic that this is happening, but it's crazy. So when Halls handed Baldwin's the prop gun, he shouted out the term cold gun, which means not loaded, safe, cleared, can't hurt anybody. That's what cold gun means. To inform the rest of the crew that it was empty. At that moment, a camera crew was huddled around the monitor and determined the camera angles of the scene. Baldwin then, again, it's not his fault, unintentionally, he didn't mean discharged the firearm while unholstering it, and the projectile penetrated. Okay, wait a minute. This doesn't make sense. If it went off when he was unholstering, he would have shot the ground. He would have shot himself in the leg. He would have shot himself in the foot. See, they glossed over the part that he unholstered the gun, pointed it at Hannah or Hutchins, and then he cocked it, and then he pulled the trigger. Those are all separate intentional acts, and they're glossing over it. Man, I mean, they're just really covering poor Alec Baldwin's to make sure it wasn't his fault. It was everyone else's. Penetrated her chest and Director Souza, who was standing directly behind her. Immediately was transported to the hospital. Souza was transported. He was later released. She died. The website subsequently revealed the weapon that killed Hutchins had been used earlier by a crew members from what the armor amounted to target practice with live ammo. This is freaking huge. So, I don't know how TMZ, I guess they got the search warrant or something. But if this is true, the weapon that killed Hutchins had been used earlier in the day by the crew members for what amounted to target practice, means they went out there and wanted to shoot the gun. It was a live gun. They went out there with live ammo and they shot it. And because the crew was playing around and nobody was enforcing safety standards, they threw the gun back on the cart. This is my interpretation of how this happened. The crew member did not clear the gun. They left a live round in the chamber. They threw the gun back on the cart with the weapons where they had grabbed it from without clearing it. The weapons expert, who is the scariest thing loading rounds, failed to check the gun that was on the cart because she thought they were all cleared. She rolled the cart onto set, and then Dave Halls, the assistant director, said the gun's on the cart that's out on a set that are supposed to be cleared, so I'm going to yell cold gun, and I'm going to give this gun to Baldwin. Baldwin now assumes all responsibility for not checking and not clearing the gun, and he draws the gun from a holster, because if he had to draw it, it was in his holster when it was safe. In his holster, it wasn't killing anybody. It wasn't being fired. It was safe. He now draws the gun from his holster, points it at them, and fires the trigger. Now, here's where the questions on liability would come in. Was this part of the scene? Was there a director saying, Alex, draw the gun. Alex, cock the gun. Alex, fire the gun like in the scene? If that was happening, his liability is shrinking and is much less. If he did it on his own, now we have issues. If he did it on his own and it wasn't part of the scene and he was joking around, he's got much bigger issues. Those are the questions that we're looking at. But I mean, just a multitude of errors. So everybody's saying, how did a live round get on set? Live rounds aren't allowed on set. Well, if the crew is allowed to load guns with live rounds and go out and target practice, then live rounds are around. I mean, so the crew member that shot, all those members should be interviewed and have statements. The lady that's scared of guns, the weapons expert, Hannah, she should be interviewed and probably put on a box on why she didn't check these guns and how the guns were accessed to the crew. And did she know the crew was out there shooting live ammunition? And who controlled the live ammunition? Who bought the live ammunition? Why was the crew allowed to use this? Is this standard procedure? Was the crew doing this on their own because they were bored? Or were they doing it as part of a scene because they needed to know how to shoot the gun operator? I mean, man, this investigation better be done good, because there is a lot of blame to go around. So everyone's trying to glean. So the union that's on strike, because they fired the union people, claimed that the live single round was the cause of this incident. Again, liberals love to blame inanimate objects when they get caught doing irresponsible things. The cause of this accident was Baldwin pointed a gun and fired it and killed them. Now, there were several other factors that led up before that, but it's not the round's fault, and it's not the gun's fault. But the union has claimed the single round was the cause of this incident, and no union weapon masters were on site. Again, they want to say, had a weapons union master been there, this wouldn't have happened, because you fired our union master. And that's one of the good things about unions. I'm not being anti-union here. I think a lot of unions, you know, rape people and get more money and hold places hostage. But when it comes to safety, if there's a union, they can be held accountable, and they usually have a higher standard. And the union probably couldn't be passed, you know, pushed around like non-union workers that need the money and need the job. So they're going to allow safety to be put on a back burner in order to appease Alec Baldwin or one of his directors, or they don't want to piss somebody off, or they want to be a team player, or they want to have a job on the next scene or movie. So therefore we have to ignore things and be nice and get along. Man, that word team player just drives me nuts. So here's where they're starting to set Halls up for the fall guy. On October 24th, CNN reported that Hall has faced complaints about his behavior on previous productions he had walked on, including disregarding safety protocols and inappropriate sexual behavior. So Halls is the purpose of this because he likes women and he disregards safety protocol. So again, if we can't blame the round and we can't blame the gun, how do we protect the left-wing loon actor that hates guns, that's always calling guns are dangerous, but he just killed somebody with a gun? How do we protect him? Well, let's blame Hall because he has prior complaints of sex. What? Like Alec Baldwin doesn't have prior complaints of inappropriate sexual behavior? He's lied, he's assaulted people, he's hit cops. Alec Baldwin hasn't faced a lot of issues in his area? No, Rick. Alec's the good guy here. He's the victim. It must be Hall's fault if we can't blame the gun or the bullet. Really? Okay, as an investigator, here's some things that I just jotted down that I think Baldwin will have a very hard time getting over. Now, we all know that the DA and the Attorney General of New Mexico can either ignore this and say, we don't care, we like him, he's a left wing, he's going to give us money, we ain't charging him, because the laws do not apply equally. If this was anybody else, it is a done deal. You are charged with freaking either manslaughter, recklessness, endangerment. I mean, there's all kind of charges you can get resulting in the death. So, but for Baldwin, here's the things that he's going to have a problem if there's any DA with any credibility that's going to charge him. He took possession of a gun. He failed to ensure that that gun was safe. He holstered the gun. We know he holstered it because unless they handed it to him in a holster and he just strapped it on, he was still wearing and in possession of a holstered gun. He then unholstered that gun. That was a deliberate, intentional act. He then pointed that gun at a person. Again, an intentional act. He then cocked the hammer on the gun, making that gun fireable. Again, an intentional act. He then pulled the trigger on that gun while pointing the gun at a person, and she died. All intentional acts, all very hard to blame someone else. Now, they are trying very hard to blame someone else. So, negligence and recklessness. Negligence a lot of time is connected with civil. You'll hear that a lot. He was negligent. If you get really negligent or recklessness, without due prudence, without prudence and care for the safety, there's all kind of words they will use. Traditionally, negligence will hang with civil liability. Recklessness, you get into criminal liability. That's not clear cut. You can get into criminal with negligence, and you can have recklessness and civil. But so when someone's negligent, they act negligently when they behave in a manner where they should have known there was a risk that some harm might occur. So negligence has a lot of ifs, ands, buts, and coconuts in it to where you can get negligence pretty easy. The person acting negligency doesn't have to know with certainty that the action will cause harm, only that it could cause harm. And I'll use a little kid jumping out in the roadway. If you're going down the roadway and you're in a school zone and you're going this posted speed limit and the school lights are flashing and a kid suddenly darts out in front of you, hit him with a car. Were you negligent? If you were driving with due regard and within the limits and it could not have been foreseen that that could have happened, you are probably not going to be negligent in that. Now, if you go through a school zone and the lights are flashing that it's 20 miles an hour and you go 25 or 30 because you're in a hurry, and now the same kid jumps in front of your car and you hit it, they will be able to argue that had you been going the speed limit, you wouldn't have hit the kid. Therefore, your speed resulted in the kid getting hit. Therefore, you were negligent. And they would prove it that way. If you go through a school zone at 90, like the cops do when they're chasing somebody for speeding 5 miles over, and then they chase them at 90 miles an hour through a school zone, and they run over 10 kids, we get into recklessness. There's no way that any reasonable person would think going 90 miles an hour chasing somebody through a school zone was any way reasonable, and no reasonable person could not predict that somebody could likely get killed. So recklessness is when a person is aware of substantial risks that certain harm may occur from their actions, but they acted that way anyway. They disregarded the risk, regardless of the consequences to you or others. So when you do things regardless, like cops do when they're chasing people 100 miles an hour because they were speeding 10 miles over the speed limit, that is absolute recklessness. The risk here is so great that it represents a departure from what a reasonable person following the law would do. So that's kind of where, and I think whether or not Baldwin falls into these groups, I absolutely think he was negligent. He didn't clear the gun. He didn't make sure it was cleared. He drew it and fired it after someone handed it to him. To me, negligence is easy. Absolutely, without a doubt, he was negligent. Was he reckless? If he drew that gun playing around and it wasn't part of the scene and directed, I think he gets into recklessness. If it was part of the scene, it was controlled, and someone said, you need to draw the gun here, we want to see you aim and pull the trigger like you're going to do in the actual scene, and he was told to do this, and he did it in course of his employment and his duties as the actor, then I do not think he gets recklessness. Even though he didn't check the gun and clear it, somebody may say that was recklessness. That would be arguable. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I think he ought to be charged either way. I think he should have criminal liability because of his prior knowledge and outspokenness that guns are dangerous, guns are bad, guns should be banned, people shouldn't have guns. Here we have an actor who has been trained by supposed experts, who has been checked by experts before him, and who does things that results in someone's death. There is no way he can claim, I didn't know. Now, intent to do harm does not matter. A lot of people are like, well, he didn't mean to kill her. That doesn't matter. People are charged every day with crimes when they didn't mean to. If in order to charge somebody with what's called a specific intent crime, specific intent means in order to have this crime occur, the person must have intended to do it. Like first-degree murder. That's a specific intent crime. Lying in wait. I want to kill you. You slept with my girlfriend. I'm going to go to your house. I'm going to hide in the bushes. I have a gun. When you show up, I jump out. Because of my prior planning, I knew you'd come home. I jump out and I shoot and kill you. That is what's called specific intent. You intended to do the action. This is not a specific intent crime. I don't think he meant to kill her. Now some may argue that he did. Okay, is this an accident? If this is an accident, and an accident is like the first thing I described. You're going through a school zone, you're going the speed limit, the lights are flashing, you're going 20 miles an hour, you may even go on 15 because you want to be really careful. And a kid darts out from a bush right in front of you and you end up hitting it. That would be deemed the child caused this. There was really no way for you to predict this could happen. There was no way for you to foresee this. No reasonable person would think that kids are jumping from bushes. Therefore, this was an accident and you incur no liability, civil or criminal. They just say this was an accident. Okay? You know, you're holding the ladder for somebody changing or putting up Christmas lights, and the rung on the ladder breaks and the guy falls to his death, and you were holding the ladder. You couldn't foresee that, and you didn't cause that, and you didn't contribute to it. Someone could argue you should have checked the ladder because you were holding the ladder. That wouldn't be reasonable. So that wouldn't work. Okay, so the questions as an investigator that I would be wanting to prove without a doubt is, did Baldwin know guns could kill people? We already know that's a yes. He's argued that guns should be banned. They're dangerous. Poor children. Cops have guns and they're shooting. I mean, he's anti-gun. So we know that he thinks, knows, and is convinced that guns can kill people. Did he know that guns are dangerous? Same answer. He's always out there promoting gun restrictions, gun takeaways. Guns are bad. People shouldn't have guns. So he knows he can't claim, I didn't know this gun was dangerous. I pointed at her, but I didn't know it was dangerous. He can't claim that. Did he know how to handle a gun? I say yes, or they wouldn't have given him one on the scene. Before they give an actor a gun, they have to put him through training. They go through safety things. They go, here's what you're going to be doing. Here's how you handle it safely. Here's how you clear the gun. Here's how you don't point at anything. They go over the basic gun rules for everybody when they give them a gun. So the answer to this is yes. This is probably not the first movie where he's handled a gun. So we have prior movies where he had training and experience. Okay? Does he own personal guns? If this is a yes, that just makes it stronger that he knows about guns and he shouldn't have did what he did. Has he shot guns before? I think this is a yes, whether it's real or blank guns on a movie set, but has he been to the range? If he owns personal guns, obviously he's probably shot them. Therefore, he's shot guns before. Does he know basic gun safety? If these are all yes, then we have to assume that it's reasonable he knows basic gun safety. You treat all guns and consider them loaded until you prove otherwise. When you take a gun from somebody, you check it. You confirm it's unloaded. All guns are treated as being loaded. All guns are loaded until you prove otherwise. That is the basic number one. You don't ever think a gun is safe and not unloaded until you prove it. You never point a gun at something you don't intend to destroy or kill. He pointed a gun at this woman. Now, the reason why he can violate this is in the course of his employment, he has to shoot somebody on film. Therefore, he has to have safety procedures and blanks, and for the film to be authentic, etc., he has to point the gun. So ignoring this, if it was in the scope of his employment, and if it was in the scene, and if he was directed to do so as part of the filming production, he's okay with this one. If he drew it as a joke, like we're hearing, that he said, oh, we got to reshoot this, how about I shoot you, I draw my gun and I point it, then he violated this. Always keep gun pointed safe direction. He obviously violated that because somebody's dead. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Obviously violated that because he pulled the trigger and he fired the gun. Be sure the barrel is clear of obstruction before loading and shooting a gun. That may not, a lot of people don't do that. Most people do that. You want to check the barrel to make sure that it's there. A lot of people are saying on movie sets they actually are required to put a flashlight down the barrel, and you must inspect the barrel with the armor. So again, I'm sure movie production sites, they're full of safety sallies, and it's probably a pain in the ass, and most people hate it, like I would. I wouldn't like working on a movie set because I don't even like going to a gun range because they're so safety sally. But this guy was on a set, and he ended up killing somebody. Okay, here's some problems for his defense, because he's trying to blame everyone. He's trying to blame that it wasn't him, it was the gun, it was the bullet, it was the person that handled the gun, it was the person that cleared the gun, it was the assistant director, it wasn't his fault, he didn't do anything wrong. That shouldn't fly in any reasonable person's mind. He intentionally and knowing took possession of a dangerous firearm. He failed to ensure it was safe. He unholstered and drew a gun in his possession. He cocked it, making it ready to fire. He pointed it at a person and then pulled the trigger and fired it, resulting in death. That's tough to overcome. He disregarded all gun safety rules. He disregarded his prior training and safety protocols. As a producer, this is where he gets more problems. He's responsible for safety on the set, not only for himself, but for other people. So by him disregarding safety protocols, not only did he put himself in danger, he put everyone on the set in danger, and it ended up with somebody on his set that he was in charge dying. So he gets liability from multiple areas. Not only as the shooter and the gun possessor, but as the producer who's responsible for safety on the set. As an actor, he's also responsible, for knowing how to handle a gun safely or ask for help. There's experts there that can help him. He will try and blame the gun, the bullet, the armor, the assistant producer, and the crew, but ultimately responsibility falls on him as the shooter and as the producer. If someone hands you a weapon and tells you it's not loaded, and you point that gun at someone and you pull the trigger and someone dies, you are liable. Period. No ifs, ands, buts, or coconuts. There's no way he can escape liability in my mind. At a minimum, I think criminal negligence / recklessness in most states call this involuntary manslaughter, but I'm not sure what New Mexico calls it. That's what I think he should be charged with. However, this is Hollywood. This is the left wing. This is politics. All the left-wing people will be coming here. Why can't we leave politics out of it? It's always the left that wants to leave politics out of it when they are held accountable. Okay, we'll know more details as it comes out. We'll end that there.